I'm Ramchandran. He's a former secretary at Ministry for Urban Development. Live with us, Amit Goenka is the MD and CEO of Nissus Finance Services Private Limited. Vineet Relia, this director, Urbanic Development Management Private Limited. Sudhir Katpalia is a property lawyer, and Ravi Sinha, the CEO of Track to Realty, live with us. Amit, if you can hear me now, I was trying to understand, Amit, whether this move of Supreme Court will it restore some of the lost credibility in the real estate sector space? The popular version. Popular interpretation is, yes, we need a ghar, we need a house, we need a roof over our head. But all real estate developers are all chores. They are thieves who will run away with your money. Does this order restore some credibility?
Well, I think in a way, it not only restores credibility, it also puts a question mark on the fact that there cannot be a complicit relationship between any of the parties, even if it's semi-governmental approval authorities, and everything must be complied with to the T, whether it's environmental norms, fire norms, safety norms, National Building Code, and every other aspect of law which is to be complied with must be complied with without taking any shortcuts or being subject to interpretation. So not only does that, but it also really puts the onus of ensuring that the product, the delivery, the ghar that we are talking about is actually made to the most compliant standards, and any amount of deviation that will not be tolerated. But I think sends that as a very strong message too, which is very important, not just completion, but getting the right product with the safety standards inbuilt.
Amit, one thing is to look at it from the viewpoint of interest of home buyers. But let's look at it from the vantage position of real estate builders, the companies. Does this kind of a judgment scare real estate companies?
I think you have to look at it from multiple dimensions, Bhupen, because the first part, as you rightly said, and which is what I started by saying, that it is a deterrent to people who could take the authorities, the approval, and the system for granted. I think that has, clearly been headlined with this judgment that you will have to follow the strictest code available in the land and follow it to the T. You cannot go around in circles saying, I will get an approval, I will meet these norms, I will build it when it is desirable, I will meet it at a later point in time. Everything must be complied head on. So I think that is a very, very significant judgment to that extent, where it actually puts the onus of compliance squarely on the developer without relying on the development authorities' plans, which means it also effectively puts the counter ownership on investors like us, on developer counterparties, whether it's a fund like us, NBFCs, banks, consumers, to actually also do their due diligence from that perspective. That is this project compliant? A sanction by itself is not enough, because every sanction comes with its own conditions, with its own anomalies, with its own idiosyncrasies, and therefore purely relying on a sanction plan is not enough. People will have to now go ahead and apply their mind and do due diligence, whether this is a product which will eventually get built as per the plans, and therefore the developers having to also comply with. In a very large way, also accept what Ravi Sinha is saying, that it has to be only and only to that extent viewed with that lens, that there is no workaround now with regulations. There's no workaround now when it comes to following the sanctity of a master.
So look at
it is a significant deterrent, because see, that was a rampant thing, that approvals were taken for granted, compliances were taken for granted, whether it's coastal regulations, whether it is forest, whether it is green zones, whether it is building norms. All these were taken for granted, and people and there was speed money involved in all of this, because it was important to get around this. Now that has now come squarely. However, the problem I have, Bhupenji, with this entire order is that it does not solve the consumer's problem, because there is no money. Unlike what we were discussing on Amrapali's too, there is no money available to pay anybody. Who's going to pay the money to demolish the building? Who's going to refund the money available, which is due to 633 home buyers? How will the interest get paid? How will these dues get settled?
These are rather interesting questions. Let me put that question to welcome the Supreme Court order. You can welcome the Supreme Court order, but Amit Goenka will then point you in the direction that who's going to implement this order, where is the money going to come from. I think these are all questions which will be answered by the Supreme Court order. The Supreme Court has given this order, rightly so, to demolish these two towers. It has also said, please pay 12% interest. Now, if the real estate company says that it's not in a position in which it can pay the home buyers, then I think it will end up leading to a second round of litigation. Can the home buyers afford that kind of a litigation or not? That's something which we need to wait and watch out for. But gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on our big debate tonight. Here's hoping that all the home buyers, not just here with Supertech, but anywhere in the country who are stuck, will look at the contours of this judgment which has been delivered by the Supreme Court today closely, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that there will be a solution for everybody.